maybe, let's see, it's 4:07. We
started.
could probably get started. Small group today. Let's see. Mike, unfortunately had a medical emergency. He had to jump off. So I'm going to try and run this, and I'm not 100% prepared, just so everybody knows, but I'll do the best I can. And Patricia, do you want to do your spiel?
Yeah, welcome to the EBC. And that we typically follow antitrust law. Not typically, we always do, because antitrust law is related to no price fixing, territory collusion, and those types of things. Just as a reminder, since we're all in the industry. Also, as a reminder, the topics today, we're covering what was presented to Excel Energy in our survey of the commercial lighting, what's happening in the future, where the industry is going. Are they sunsetting lighting in the new DSM plans? And had a great meeting, so we'll talk about that. And then also the exchange afterwards of what our lag group asked of Excel, and then what they're asking for us to collaborate going forward. And then we can also talk about the hiring pipeline a little bit, touch base on that. And I think Scott, as one of our co-chairs, Scott Kelly, is going to talk about our what happened at the roundtable at the Excel today.
Yeah, just brief, just a couple of highlights that I saw. But yeah, do we want to bring up the PowerPoint?
Yeah. So this is, Jim, Scott, and Denise, when we had the conversation about the results, it wasn't put into a PowerPoint. Or were you guys a part of the putting the PowerPoint kind of points together? And then we had the meeting with Excel, but a couple of, I think, Scott, you weren't available, but you were there the day before when we kind of outlined what we were going to talk about. Is that right?
I think you're talking to me, Scott.
Yes, sorry, Scott.
Yes, okay. Yes, I did miss that one important meeting with Excel, but I've been around the rest of them and eavesdropping in on the survey and everything you guys are working on.
Awesome. So can you guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, great. I'm going to go to single slide mode there. Awesome. So I don't know, Scott, do you want me to kind of jump in and we'll just go back and forth?
Sure, that's fine.
So just to frame it up, a couple things that we had planned on having a 1-hour meeting and an hour debrief afterwards with all of us that were on the call from the EBC. And what happened is it was just such a great engaging meeting that Excel asked if they could stay on for an extra hour with us and talk through things more. And it was probably one of the better meetings and outcomes than I could have expected. And I know, Scott, was your take on it was?
Yeah, I thought it was positive, really. And, there was definitely, I thought, a little bit of pushback, I guess, on some of the things that we would like versus what things that Excel would find beneficial. But, I thought overall it was constructive, I would say, and very cordial. So, and I can't remember, was Jim, were you on that one too? Were you on the call?
I was not, I missed it.
Okay, I was just curious.
I'll do that. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No worries. I was just curious if you were on
the
it.
Excel participants.
But
I think Scott Milne, did you just say how many participants from Excel?
Who was the Excel participants? How many?
4, all the program managers. So Bob McCauley has taken over that program. Pretty much, I think everyone we all knew has switched over. So it was, just so I can get the full names, I'm gonna actually switch PowerPoints here real quick.
Yeah, I was trying to remember who it was.
So because there was Paige.
Yep, Paige Romero.
Yep. And what was her last name?
Romero, I think, isn't it?
Paige Romero. There was Kim, starts with an M. She's from covers the lighting program for multiple Excel.
Kim Sherman,
Yes. And who's the other girl?
Madison Curry, I
Mhm.
think.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know her. I actually don't know Kimmy. I know Paige and Robert or Bob, but I don't know those other two very well.
So, and I think Alex McCurdy, one of them replaced him. Is that right? Do you remember that name? So those four, so they brought in kind of their two engineer people as well. So they wanted to bring in the full group, which was nice that, we didn't ask for that. I thought we were just going to get Paige and Bob at first. And then they pulled in the rest of the other two as well. I don't know, Jim, do you know any of them?
I know, I think I've talked to Paige. I don't know Bob.
Yeah, she's been in multiple roles over there at Excel, and she's kind of like, I guess maybe climbed the ranks would be the way to put it. But and Bob's been over there for quite a while too. He's kind of like he's the guy that kind of goes around and says hi to everybody and thanks them for participating in the program. And I can't remember what his exact title is, but
yeah, if you go to any Excel event, you'll meet Bob McCauley.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. And yeah,
PR, but he also manages them too.
Yeah.
So he's their boss, but he's definitely not the engineer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
but yeah,
I almost feel like we should go the reverse right now. I almost feel like we should discuss what they said they were interested in, what we asked for from them, and then go back to kind of how the PowerPoint was presented.
Okay, sure.
Because I feel like we're talking about that anyway right now.
Okay. Yeah, that works.
If you like that.
That was good. They came back to us with some pretty detailed questions, I thought, and they're engaging us, humoring us at least.
Yes.
So did it seem like most of the ideas they were receptive to and or already considering? Or
I would say the answer to that is they listened, but some of them they definitely didn't have much interest in, I would say. They had some they were more interested than others in, like things like the custom program and things like nighttime rebates. They were pretty reluctant to listen to, but I do have I'll show you guys later some interesting stuff regarding the nighttime stuff. But they seemed right now to be reluctant to provide higher rebates and stuff like that on some of that stuff. So we'll kind of have, I guess, that'd be a decision for the group. What things do we want to go after, and how hard do we want to push on certain things, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's
choosing our battles.
Yeah, and I think there was some things that we were surprised we were aligned on, because they were interested in like network controls and things like that were coming.
Did they grimace when you mentioned we might like to experiment with a commercial on-bill financing program?
That one, they definitely seemed far. That was another one where they listened, but they seemed very far out from being able to put something like that in place. Like it almost, they said, well, we don't have anything like that in place. And then I think I brought up that we have it for residential. It was almost like they didn't even want to bring up the residential one, is kind of the way it felt to me. It seemed, I don't know how you feel, Patricia, but it definitely seemed like they were years away from being able to like put something like that into play, was my impression.
And some of it though too, I think that we brought up things that they were not thinking about.
Yeah, true.
So like that on-bill finance, it was kind of like, whoa, this is interesting. We haven't thought about this. That you guys feel like this is so important, so the priorities that we had asked for. So can you guys see my slide?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
some reason you're dictating too. I don't know if you know that or
I
not,
do
but
not know what that is, Connie. Whenever I put it in full screen mode, that comes on, and we've not figured out why.
everything every once in a while it'll say something funny for you. Um,
Oh, really?
but that,
So-
well, like it'll interpret it the wrong way. But with the on-bill financing too, they kind of pushed us toward the current financing channels that they have with
Neef.
NEEF. Thank you. So they were kind of like said, well, we already really have that, and we basically kind of brought up, well, it doesn't necessarily address the goal, and the I don't know if anybody else has participated in that NEEF program, but the ones that we participated in, it took us like 6 months on the most recent one just to get it like pushed through all the different, to get it pushed to the right people and get the right sign offs and everything, get all our paperwork in order. It was quite
Painful.
cumbersome. Yeah.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
However, though, I do feel like on all those points, we did push for like, here's what could be done differently.
Yeah.
And so I think they definitely listened. And so on this slide, you can see, so yeah, it was Bob McCauley, Kim Sherman, Madison Curry, Romero Page. We have their emails in there. And so here's the recap of the follow-up items that I had pulled from our meeting. And so our group requested of Xcel Energy, kind of what you're asking right now, can you rank? They wanted us to send the survey to them, and they wanted to go through those quite closely. So that was, I think, positive that they were asking for that from us. And we asked them then, can you rank the ideas that are most priority to you, that have the most future potential for incentives? And then we also said, if you could rank it based on what your priorities are going to be in the 2023, 2024, 25 DSM plan. So then we asked them to identify the ideas that are they're prioritizing for beneficial electrification goals support. And then kind of like out of that, what are the top 5 things that you would want us to focus on, to grow our business and their savings. So that was our request to them. Then they came back with, I'm going to move this so I can see it a little bit better. How can we get more details on accurate information? Like, we struggle to get accurate information. And of course, they were talking about, for example, where wattages are too low in the rebates. That's something that the group brought up, and that we said. And so they're like, oh, it's pretty much like, we didn't realize that. Can you tell us, where are they too low in the rebates? Like, what would we need to adjust so they can, I'm assuming, so they can run a TRC on it and include the costs and the labor if possible. And I think that's when I was like, whoa, costs and labor. Okay, I don't know if everybody wants to share their pricing with you, kind of thing. So I brought up the antitrust law at that point. And then one of their babies, like they're launching, is how to elevate horticultural rebates with contractors to do the work. And I thought that was interesting, because I think that was low on our list.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. Yeah, and I don't know if you guys know this, but I thought that was good information, that they are going to be coming out with horticulture rebates, like prescriptive horticulture rebates, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Good, because the custom horticultural rebates are a lot of work. It's a pain in the neck.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Patricia, but remembering back now that I think about it, I think it was going to be based on watts, though, wasn't it? It wasn't going to be maybe necessarily like $50 a fixture. I think it was going to be like, I don't know what it was, 20 cents a watt or something, for savings. So it is a little different than a normal prescriptive, but it's still going to be some sort of prescriptive, almost like they do with with controls for rebates than what they do with like a high bay. So I don't know.
It was interesting when you just said, they want examples. you would think, you would hope that their rebate facilitators, would communicate the problems, why projects aren't fitting into the boxes as they're defined. And, we weren't able to capture this because of the wattage is too low. I mean, they would know, I think, very well, what kind of projects are falling out, or,
Yeah, the wattages was because we brought that up. And that's
Right.
when it's, we said the wattages are too low and so the rebates. And then they were saying, can you tell us where so we can look into changing that? Is that
well, bollards is too high.
it might have been too high. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
it starts too high, right? I mean, if you're doing a
Mhm.
35-watt bollard that doesn't get a rebate, even if you're taking out a 75-watt metal halide, I think. But
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
So is that something we would want to, as a group, provide to them?
I definitely think we can provide
The
that. I don't think
wattages?
that's like anything
Hard to
proprietary
come
to
up
any of
with.
us or anything. And I think it's fairly easy to demonstrate. I'm not 100% sure what to me, the solution is you've got, this wattage of fixture that you're taking out. It shouldn't necessarily matter what wattage you're putting back in. Hopefully, you're being smart enough, the contractors are being smart enough to not put in a 3-watt bollard for a 100-watt existing system or something, but like you can easily replace, a 70-watt bollard with a 70-watt existing bollard with a 25-watt bollard. And but if, like you're saying, Jim, it falls outside the potential. So to me, it's like, do they really need a minimum on there in some of those scenarios?
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, why a minimum?
I mean, what do you guys think? Is there a reason for a minimum, Jim or Scott, like that you can think of? Besides, potential bad design, but like, if you do that, you're not going to be in business very long because nobody's going to hire you again because you screwed their lighting up theoretically. So
The efficiency is getting higher and the light output and volume is getting greater from lower watt fixtures.
right.
And they're just a little behind, but
But
why
they're always
is
going to
there
be behind the game. Yeah.
why is there a minimum?
Yeah.
If you're doing a 10-watt tube, I don't know if they have minimums on the tubes, but I don't think so. But if you were doing a 10-watt tube rather than in 15-watt or 18-watt, which is what we were used to 2 years ago, that's a good thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, just the minimum, maybe there's every once in a while where you should have it, but I think overall, like it's just not a necessary piece to it, that people, as contractors, we should be designing systems appropriately and not under lighting. Because again, I think that, potentially, you're gonna have somebody not happy if you're not doing it right. So yeah.
Is there still a like a minimum payback that they won't support?
Yeah, I think it's 1 year typically, but I don't think it ever really comes into play on prescriptive. Really, it only comes into play on, I've never seen it like come into play where lately, like where they would kick something out because it was a 6-month payback to it. I mean, they can't do that anyway. Like if you think about it, like the rebate and tubes down to, like, they just give you a 50% bonus on a tube, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure there's all sorts of scenarios where that's a sub 1 year payback. If you got an existing T12 system in place and you replace it with a $1 tube, now I would think that that's gonna, there'd be all sorts of scenarios where it'd come in under a year, if it's running 24 hours a day or something, if that makes sense. So I can't imagine that they would kick it out of prescriptive right now, but they will on custom, I think.
Yeah,
Which
it
I don't,
always seemed like a strange, sort of like the minimum wattage. What do they care? And if it's cost effective you know, for them to save that wattage. Why would they, you know, other than they don't want free riders, but, you know, my example was, well, let's say the building staff is going to install it. So, you know, there's really no marginal labor cost. Oh,
Right.
okay. Now your payback's under a year. We're not going to give you the rebate. Well, that's ridiculous.
Right.
Or
Agreed.
that they're running 24 hours versus 8 hours a day. Well, that's 3 times the payback. Oh, then that, you know, it just doesn't seem logical to me that if you're looking at the, you know, the old assumption is that it's cheaper to save the watt than generate it. Well, then the value is in the watts, and the value is to the utility company, not to the customer. You're not trying to limit the value to the customer. You're trying to buy capacity at a cheaper cost, and the value is to the utility company.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. You know,
So that
it's
seems
it's
like-
it's the same it's the same thing on the, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's the same thing on the long end of the payback too. Like, who cares like what the payback is? You know, they should get the rebate, whether it's a 15-year payback or a 6 month payback.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys, can you hear me? Okay
Yeah.
now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I was having technical difficulties earlier. I'm with PACE, Partners for a Clean Environment. We do a lot of work with Excel rebates too. You know, we work with a lot of contractors. And to date, I don't think I've ever seen one of my rebates refused because of payback. Maybe that's helpful, unless it was custom. I have had a couple of HVAC scenarios refused.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think on, you know, to that point, like on prescriptive, like, I don't think it matters if it's a 15-year payback on prescriptive either. You know, it's really only custom. And I don't know what's going on with the audio. My audio is all jacked up. I don't know if you can tell that, but.
Yeah, it's noticeable.
Yeah, I wonder if I caused that, so I'll go ahead and make sure I keep mine off. I'm having all sorts of technical problems today.
I think everybody is. I know I was just looking to see how much stuff I had open on my computer that was causing some problems.
Let's see, and then what else did we, let's see, yeah, and then on the providing the costs for the, or the providing the information on the wattage, I think that'd be a fairly easy thing though for us to put together for Excel, and maybe give kind of a justification to it, and give some examples of, you know, scenarios where, and we've been taking like night shots too, where we can show like, here's where we took out this and put in this, and it was perfectly fine. I don't know, and I don't know if you guys know this too, but on Excel's program there is a 10% leeway that they give you on the wattages. So like if it's 20 watts, you could actually do 18. Like if it's listed as 20, did you guys know that?
What was that again?
So on the prescriptive form, and I don't have one up or able to show you, but you know, it gives you that range of wattages.
Yes.
So let's say it's like 20 to 30 watts or something like that. There's a like a, I think it's a 10%, if I remember right, area of where they'll give you up or down 10%, and
Okay.
you could still get a rebate for that. So I don't know if you knew that or not, but. So there is a little leeway there, but even still, it sometimes it falls outside of even that 10%. That audio is better now, by the way, but it falls outside that that threshold, even with the extra 10% that they give you.
So that's definitely a topic. Like, I feel like we need to come back and say, here's some things you asked us for, and it might be just easier to invite them to a meeting and just have our talking points for them. Or
Yeah.
we give bullets in advance or something like that, saying, here's what, you know, we're available to talk about if you'd like.
But I think we should don't you think we should still like put something down, like hard data down though, right? And then be able to talk about it with them, obviously.
I think like, here's the key things worth thinking about when you're asking about wattages. Here's our examples. This is why we brought it up.
Yeah.
place. I think that makes sense for sure. Do you guys still see anything on my screen?
Yeah, I can see a file now with some PowerPoints in it.
Okay. Thought maybe,
Yeah, I don't remember seeing anything with specific wattages detailed, unless I overlooked it.
I
You,
think what,
on the prescriptive form, you mean, Denise?
Oh, just on the slides on
Oh,
what was proposed, if there was a proposed, I just been seeing that one slide. So I didn't know if it was just my screen or if that's what Patricia was showing.
I tried closing everything and then I was reopening it to see if that would help. I turned my camera off to see. Now, do you see the screen again?
Mhm.
Okay. I think I'm not going to switch it over to the single slide if that's all right.
Sure. That's fine.
Because I think there's something weird happening on the bandwidth side there. So then the next set of questions. So we'll put wattages down, like the high wattage minimum question. Why is the minimum necessary? And then, because they're asking, okay, can you give us examples, of the wattages to understand, what would need to be adjusted? This was my takeaway on that. So then this next slide here has, remember how we ended up having a problem, like they had sent out an announcement the day before, and Scott talking about that most of us hadn't received it. And
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, do you guys know that, Scott and Jim? Did you know that
No.
there's 50% bonuses now? That just rolled out like how many weeks ago, Patricia?
Oh,
2
yeah,
weeks?
May 1st. Yeah, I think you're
Yeah,
right.
May 1st. Yeah.
I sort of randomly found that, yeah.
Well, that was kind of our point to him, right? Is that like, how are we the last to find out about this? And I think, I was thinking that through a little bit, Patricia, like, I'm sure that they kind of want to be the bringers of information, I guess. They don't want to be, us to be telling them their customers before maybe them do, or before they do, is maybe part of that, but at least to know at the same time so that, it's always a little embarrassing when the customer comes to you and they're like, hey, did you know there's a 50% bonus? And you're like, I you have to pretend like you did. You're like, oh yeah, sure. You're like scrambling to try and find it. But like, no, it definitely feels like sometimes we're the last to know.
So and we haven't talked to them about that since then, but just, making sure that, what lists are the different contractors on, and, EBC contractors, we want to make sure that you guys get those announcements too. And we send out general things too, like in our newsletters and our news you can use specifically. So I think we just need to ask and find out like how we prioritized and how you as contractors, because I would have expected you guys to receive that before EBC did.
Yeah, and for us, and I'm sure others are like this, like it's the second we get those, usually we're reaching back out to people and saying like, hey, is this project still on the table? Just so you know, there's this much more rebate for it, and here's your new payback and things like that. So the sooner we know about that, the sooner we can get the information into folks' hands. And a lot of these projects, unfortunately, and I'm sure Jim and Scott know this, like they take a while to get off the ground. It's not like, a lot of times it isn't like, oh great, new 50% bonus, I'll sign it today. It's got to still go up through channels and things like that. And so, even though 6 months from now or whatever it is seems like a long time, sometimes it's not as long as you think. So yeah, it'd be great to get on there. And I like that idea of like, this group in the EEBC getting that information, hopefully, at least when the customers get it.
Well, that's where I was like, at least when the customers get it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And yeah, and I think, it's funny because sometimes, like, I don't know if any of you guys have experienced this too, but sometimes like, sometimes the account reps will tell me like before it's even live. So they know somehow. So somehow like internally Excel knows, or not somehow, but internally Excel a lot of times knows these things are coming. And then sometimes like I'll have like an account rep or something, and we're working on a project. They'll be like, hey, there's a rebate coming out in 2 weeks. It's not live yet and they haven't announced it, but it's coming. So obviously they know beforehand, or some people know beforehand.
Right. So that's one of the things that we're asking from them. And then I think the last piece on here is they had asked us specifically to share and discuss with them, and almost like we'd like to have like a quarterly check-in and brainstorming sessions with you. We'd like to come and bounce some, lighting program ideas off you and proposals in future meetings. So it was interesting how much they wanted to utilize our group. I think that would be the best outcome of everything, maybe not on specific items always, but the fact that they wanted to have a much stronger relationship with this group and to bring ideas to you guys, bounce ideas. They wanted to really dig into our survey. So that was, I think, a really good sign, I think,
Yeah.
that they saw this group as a particular group to really utilize.
I thought that was interesting today in the DSM roundtable. And again, I was
Mhm.
kind of casually listening, and but I kind of caught it in passing that I'm trying to think of the gentleman's name that was talking. He's always on the calls. If I can find it here. What is
Mark
his name?
Schoenheider, like the overall
What's his name?
Mark Schoenheider,
Yeah, Mark. It was Mark.
George McGurk.
So he was talking today, and one of the things I thought was interesting is he basically said, like, they were talking about their 60-day notices, and they were talking about the 2023 plan and the 2024 plan. And he said something along the lines of that he would like to hear about things that folks want and talk about, like, issues and things like that before it goes to that 2023 plan, and you have to take like the official, like, formal steps to like get anything changed and things like that. So it sounded like they're more interested in kind of like upfront getting this information in, and hopefully like kind of working together to formulate the plan versus like them putting something out there and then us and them having to like go back and forth through that like formal process.
To get it changed, the legally to respond to get it changed. That's what I think. Ann Kirkpatrick has talked about that there's a complete change in management thinking at Excel, and the fact that Mark, she's like, he's really driving changing the culture there, from keeping it private and then releasing the plan, and then all of a sudden all of us say that's ridiculous. Like, that's a horrible rebate requirement, or that doesn't work, or we need more market development, or whatever the things that we go back to them with. And so I think that culture is changing right now because of Mark and him saying that we'd like to have more of these informal discussions. Like, I was surprised that George McGurk called me yesterday at 5 about the heat pump rebates, Denise, and that how we were responding, and I had some questions about what's the exact deadline and how our response. And so it's interesting that I would have thought that was not illegal, but not acceptable, or I don't know what I want to say exactly, but in the past, I didn't think that I would talk to him and say, look, here's our response. And he said, well, if you guys turn it in this way, this is how it'll get enacted. If you turn in this way. And he said, I'm getting information from Boulder and from Denver, and they're saying that they're going to intervene under you guys, do so it was kind of this very informal discussion, which has never really happened before. I don't think it's not been that open before. So in our response was, I was like, okay, so we're submitting yes, we agree with the recommendations for the move that you made, but I want it to be clear in our comments that, you know, he was like, well, aren't we still doing our working group with you, or are we working with you guys on this, right? Going, yes, and it's so nice that you're excited. We are. But you know, it's like I came back with our letter is going to have, our comments is going to have a pretty not harsh but intense list of great first step. We're excited about that. However, you know, we look forward to exploring how to get all the equipment eligible in, you know, this next in 2023 and in 2022 and in 23 in the lead. So it's kind of like we were saying, we're informally going to intervene with you now on, you know, what needs to happen and change. And we're going to go out and get case studies for you. Like, we're going to push, but it was clear, but it was just more amicable in the process. So I think that's what we're experiencing a little bit with the lighting group here, that openness to, you know, discuss the rebates before that plan gets released, so that they don't have to go into, we don't all go into a pressure cooker legally, and they're going to say, okay, we need your proposals in 2 weeks. And then we're trying to get companies to turn around their proposals in 2 weeks, which is impossible. So
Seems like an exciting development though, right? Like I mean, that's
I
great.
think that's where I'm saying is like,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
we're entering to a really great era
yeah.
with the management there, and then strategic issues and beneficial electrification that's coming. And I think that's why they're so open to spend time with us that much
That's
time.
cool. Yeah. No, it's exciting.
So I think next, this is the next request. So that was the exchange after our meeting. And then Paige Romero came back and she asked these 3 things. And then the next couple slides are really just the email responses between her and Mike. But so I can just read this because Scott, you haven't seen this. And I haven't actually read this either. Mike really was familiar with what she was asking for. So she asked for something that she thought was helpful for us right now would be more info and examples on the comments about the limitations on prescriptive programs inflexibility noted on slide 8, which exactly I think is what we're talking about. The items you noted were relying on DLC classifications when the same fixture can have multiple application, and wattages below prescriptive programming minimum for a category. So is that kind of what we were just talking about, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yep, exactly.
So, so then if possible, could you please share some specific examples of both of these items so we can look into it more? For the wattage minimums, if you could share which measures you most commonly run into issues with, specifically, that would be really helpful. And then the third thing she asked for is regarding controls. It's a different topic. Are there any additional tools or information that you can think of that Excel could create that would help highlight the importance of controls technology to customers, and in turn help trade partners sell controls to their customers?
more money would be a good start.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what other tools she was looking for, but maybe like case studies of happiness, I would think, you know, like of user comfort
Right.
and
Satisfaction. Yeah.
And are there examples? I think you guys also talked about things like on the control side, when you were talking about network controls, and I'm not familiar with your products, but you were also talking about how you could assist with DR response events or ongoing DR, things like that. Is that fall into?
yeah. I mean, I definitely think that would be something good to show them. The honest truth of it is we don't have any, I personally don't have any specific examples where we've implemented something like this, although I know it's possible to do it. But we haven't implemented anything that would necessarily tie into a demand response program, but it's possible to do it for sure. The technology's there.
Okay. So this is Mike just, you know, threw down a bunch of ideas here, and I think maybe we should look at them and see if there's more you would want to add or comments you would want to add to this. I don't know if you can read the screen.
Yeah. And I think, this might be something too, where we might be like almost more like a homework assignment too, where we go back and like read this and then consider like if we have specific examples that would fit into this as well, that we could present to them.
That would be great, because Mike threw out quite a bit
Right.
of ideas here, and then he also responded to the controls question too. So I think putting this in front of you guys and then being able to respond to it is going to create some brainstorming, some thought starters for you guys. So if we could take these two things as, I like the homework idea that you said, that would make sense to me.
Let's see.
So then I switch over to the actual, how we organized all the findings of the survey and presented it. So you guys can see that too and take that with it.
Before we go too far from that, Patricia, could I share my screen and show one of the things that I saw today? Because it kind of ties to that control question.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I just wanted to show the group because I thought it was kind of interesting. Let's see, share. Can you guys see that screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So this, the last presentation they did was regarding Excel's demand response program. And it was like the last 45 minutes or so of the presentation today. But I thought this was interesting. Like currently in 2021, they have 495 megawatts of demand response available to them. So that's 7% of their overall peak system that they have control over. That's in the summer, as you can see here, and then in the winter it's like half that though. It's like 238 megawatts. And I thought what was interesting about this, if you go down here to these slides, so this is currently peak demand in 2022, and if they were going to clip, what was it? I think it was like 700 megawatts. If they were going to clip 700 megawatts, you could see like the events are happening in July and August, and then they've got like a little bit here in December. So that's 2022. But then like you look at the times of day and when it's happening, and here's your months here: July, August, December over here. When you look at 2030 though, it's pretty interesting. Like now all of a sudden and it's because of the huge increase in renewable generation is what was one of the main causes. And they hadn't really even taken too much into account the whole electrification piece of things. And if that really takes off, this was more based on like renewable energy and the idea that like it's shining a lot more in the summer. You got a lot of solar, right? And it's shining a lot more in the summertime than it is in the winter. And so the times and the frequencies and the hours when you need load reductions are going to change quite a bit in 2030 from what it is now. And so my thought on this is they're kind of giving us the data here for like controls, right? For like exterior. And like, one of the things we brought up was like, would you be willing to, rebate exterior lighting a little more and like controls for exterior lighting? And then I had the thought, I drive around at night and I see all these buildings that have like all these night lights on. You look at these high rises and they got, a quarter of the light still burning at night, implementing some sort of smart lighting controls that can either dim or shut some of that stuff off, especially in the winter months, come 5 o'clock when it gets dark. We might be able to help them out here and contribute to their program. So I thought it was really interesting how it's going to shift from 2022, the peaks, to 2030.
What did they say about how to address those?
Well, that's down here. They're doing these studies. Let's see. Modeling of the DR programs. So then you have all these different programs that they're testing. And so I posed the question. I said, have you considered like nighttime lighting controls and trying to get some of the night lights shut off? And they said that kind of falls under this auto demand response program here. So, I was thinking, could we do some kind of what we talked about before, Patricia? Like, could we present some sort of like case study to them, or like some sort of pilot program to them that maybe our group could participate in, and um, see if we could make an impact here.
I think that is the type of things that this group can bring a ton of value to.
Right.
If you
Is
had a group of 12 lighting companies, right, and you guys could get funded to do those things, and then as a group, you're aggregating the results between, your customers. Who knows? I mean, that's what I mean. Look at that, the motivation why they're trying to figure this out. I guess I'm a little shocked to see how many peaks there were in that graph. Those peaks, the pink, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot compared to 2 or 3 this year, right?
Yeah, it's 21. It's actually, yeah, the days go up dramatic. It's the hours, which I thought that was interesting. It's hours that they're
Mhm.
doing it in.
Oh, so they
So it
spread
looks
out
like it
those
shifts too.
it-
Sorry, it looks like it shifts too from starting at 1 o'clock and ending at what 12, 6.
that's right.
6 o'clock.
It
And
does.
it-
Yeah, yeah. They made a point about that as well, that the hours in the day shift to a later time.
Yeah, and they're gonna experience their, especially when you add like EV chargers and it's charging at night, they're
Mhm.
expecting to get nighttime peaks that they've never had before. It's always been, that's why our time of use is what, 3 to 7 or whatever it is. So yeah, that's fascinating.
It looks like they moved the green line from 4,800 down to 4,000 with this chart. And that's why it hit so many peaks. If you
Mhm.
go back.
Oh, that is interesting. Why is
Yeah, so
that?
it's almost like more lower peaks rather than a couple of super, super high ones.
Maybe that represents them closing coal burning power plants.
Well,
And
it
then
does. I think that's why, and I'm Denise, you're part of the heat pump conversations, like that year in the HSPF score. They're saying we can't get rid of that because we have to guarantee that we don't go into our higher, more expensive assets, which means turning on a coal plant, turning on more natural gas or whatnot. And so they're avoiding that. So in looking at this, they're saying we can't have those super high peaks because it's the highest energy use and it's 5 times a year. So now you're looking at the other one saying, okay, you're going to spread out those peaks to have less of a spike, but spread it out the hours per the year.
But
So you don't have to go into those resources as the high assets.
but I
That's
think
my,
what Scott's saying is, and maybe I'm misunderstanding you, but he's saying, see this line right here? It's
right.
at the net load on the system is 4,800 and 2822. That's I almost think that's got to be a typo or something.
No,
And now,
I think that's what they're trying to do is lower that net load, but also, I mean, if they drop down those 2 high peaks down to 4,500 instead of 5,000, then they don't have to dig into those more expensive assets because
huh,
they have more renewables and stuff available. I'm just trying to, this is what I'm learning about these peak times and what they're having to do. So that's why when you said the hours, the reduction increases from 21 to 58 in 2030. But it's like they're spreading it lower so they can handle those peaks more. That's what I'm understanding between the 4 and the 5,000. And maybe I'm interpreting that incorrectly.
Patricia and Scott, it's Mike. I'm back on. By the way, public service announcement from eye care professionals: do not rub your eyes. Story on that later. But
Okay.
I'm not going to die. So,
Okay, good.
That's
I
good.
look absolutely horrible. Don't rub your eyes. I don't care how allergic you feel. So, Scott, I think you're right on. Scott Milne, I think yeah, if we're killing coal power plants, it's funny. They had said that they have an excess of energy now, at least at night. But I thought the wind tends to die down at night. So I think you're right. I think they have to kind of lower the overall demand, because we're not going to have solar at night feeding the grid. So, and if you have less winds, then you cross that critical threshold much at a lower level. And they don't want to, Patricia, I think to your point, I don't think they want to tap into very expensive supplemental energy to
Yeah.
feed the grid.
I do think though they said that the wind is higher at night, so they have more energy than they need at night.
That's what I thought they said too, but you know, well, here lately, look what's going on. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's lately.
But the wind is higher at night, so they have more energy than they need, and they don't have a way to store it to use it during the day.
Yeah, but that's now. And if we're moving, I think, you know, 8 years from now, where we have so much more energy demand at night, I think we won't be able to meet it. So that DR, the demand response for nighttime, that, by the way, I think it's a great idea. So are they looking to be able to have then the ability to reduce, you know, do typical demand response, cut back on energy for, say, lighting from Excel's point of view on the demand side? Is that what we're looking to do, Scott?
Back to that other slide, Scott, that showed
The programs. Yeah, there's how many programs are there on the 1, 2, 3? You know, there's probably 10 or 14 programs now that they're looking for ways to curtail that load. And, you know, I mean, it's a pretty big amount. It's like right now they have 495 megawatts of capability. So you know, it's, you know, lighting can be a part of it. It can't be all of it, basically.
Right.
This is kind of, if they rank 15th out of 144 IOUs as a percentage of peak demand, according to EIA data. Let's see, 7th in industrial load. It was just some good information, I thought, on this. It's I don't know if you guys got this or not, but it was in the DSM thing. They send out the PowerPoints. I can forward it to you guys if you want me to. Let's see, what else was there? Anything else interesting in here? And they were saying they wanted to get to 700 megawatts, I think it was, by I'm sorry, no. This is by seasonal achievable potential by 2030.
What's that existing summer DR line?
That's this up here. That's that amount. I think that 495.
Oh, okay.
So that's, yeah, I think
that. Yep, that looks like
air conditioning. We got to get those ballasts out of buildings.
There you go.
A quick question too. I was wondering when you were talking about like network lighting controls or ways to, I think they were wanting to engage, I guess, more on how to promote that. Is that correct? Were they talking, do you have any idea if they were talking specifically commercial, or were they factoring in residential too?
I think we were more talking commercial, but I think they would be open to residential too. It's funny, I go downstairs in my house and like my kids leave the lights on all the time, and I'm always thinking like I should put some kind of sensor down here in my basement so that my kids can't leave the lights on anymore. But
yeah,
I mean, I think there's potential for it. What?
Yeah, thinking about population and growth and housing, and you know, how of course the loads hopefully would come down with more people doing LEDs, but you know, if we were going to address it across the board, maybe addressing sensors in the home more, marketing that and the benefits could be good.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting thing to look at. I think like how I think there's a couple things that'd be interesting with residential controls, and it, you know, one, how acceptable would it be to people to have it in their home, to have the lights turn off automatically, and two, what's the actual potential there, and three, what are the costs of making it happen? Because like I said, I would like to do it, but like, you know, I'm thinking about the rooms in my house too, and I've got LEDs everywhere in my house now. You know, I've got a room with like, you know, it's got 8 cans in it, and it's got, you know, 8, 10 watt cans, right? Well, that's 80 watts that I'm controlling, and it might cost me, and I'm in the biz, so it might cost me $300-400 just to get it installed. So I don't know. Is the potential there? I guess would be my question to it. I think it's a good idea. I'd be really interested to see what the feasibility of it is.
Yeah, and I ask because I work mostly with businesses. I'm in the commercial world and multifamily, but yeah, I was just curious, like, I don't really have any perspective on how much that could reduce demand.
Well, they don't either, it looks like, because they said they haven't explored it, right? On the one.
With the one I brought up, they hadn't really. They were just kind of starting to dig into it. So now would be really a good time to like present something to them or present some ideas to them, I think.
I think I'm thinking too, if they, when they go through and prioritize the survey, right, and come back and say, these are things we're interested in, I think that's a topic that we wouldn't even need to have it completely baked to talk to them. I think we'd say, look, we're looking at your roundtable DR presentation, and we're wondering if there's a pilot here. Like, what are the 5 things, that they identified as the priorities in our survey? Do they line up? Which ones align up with your top priorities as a group? And then saying, let's brainstorm some pilots that can help further along, whether it's network controls or whatever it is.
I'm wondering if on the residential side, there might be more bang for the buck, so to speak, if they could do response on the charging of EVs. Again, not widely adopted yet, but if you consider the amount of, you got 240 volts going to that car, and whether if they had the ability to say delay or cut back, reduce the voltage or whatever, while that car is being charged for a couple of hours at night when they really need to conserve, maybe that would be more than say, network lighting controls in a home.
Yeah, that's this one right here. Just so you know, too, Mike. They are looking. It's this EVTOU, the time of use.
Perfect. Yeah.
High frequency program. So
Yep.
it's definitely one that's, I think, pretty high on their radar.
Yeah.
And I would agree that would probably have a lot more impact.
Right.
And how would lighting fit into that then?
It wouldn't either. It wouldn't. I'm just saying that I think if you could throttle the how much energy is being used to recharge cars for a couple of hours at night, that would have a much bigger impact than a whole lot of homes reducing their cutting back on the wattage of lights or whatever inside those homes, because that if assuming LEDs are widely adopted in those homes, it's not going to save you nearly as much energy as EVs.
Right. I think like, the key to it is you got one device that uses an insane amount of energy, right? Versus like a bunch of devices that use very little energy in several rooms where you're going to need multiple control devices to control those. It's probably a lot easier to just do it on the car. But it's interesting though, for sure, the controls at home. Like I said, like I go downstairs all the time and lights are on. So there's potential there. I don't know how you do it cheap enough to make it make sense.
Right.
But realize this is a pilot. And
yeah.
The intent is understanding the model, and it might be expensive now, but then you're estimating what the expense would be in 10 years from now. And they'll invest in pilots like that because, for example, EBC, we were the driver with Honeywell to do the first smart thermostat. And create a rebate for that. And so at that time, it was not cheap to get a smart thermostat put in, so now it's, it's common. But the EBC, that was one of the pilots that we proposed and they supported and funded.
Mm-hmm.
Don't they have like, and this is a little off topic, but don't they have like behavioral programs like that almost to me like a good thing for the residential, and I know most of us are commercial, but like a good thing for the residential would almost be like a behavioral thing that they teach in schools or something like that to get your kids to like pay attention to turning off the lights, doing a
Well,
better job of like turning off the lights
yeah,
because
well, I can tell
yeah.
you, I propose I worked with Emporia Energy, right? And they have the smart meters. Thanks, Denise. Um, and they have smart meters for the home that actually will move your kind of like shape shift your whole load in your home. So with the EV chargers, it'll actually enable you to turn off your EV charger or other things that you're using in the house, or it'll show on your circuits where you're using most of your energy. So like your basement, like you could actually isolate that with smart plugs
Hmm.
and turn them off yourself with that $130 smart device that has CT clamps in your panel. And yeah, I think there's a way to totally do that, but they'd have to combine different technologies to do it. They're just not ready to, maybe they're ready to look at that now, but 2 years ago is like way ahead of all of this, but now this is here. So
I was looking at that distribution of the peak hours, Scott, we were showing it at 2030. And it looked like, it was kind of a super peak around 6 p.m., right? Hour of the day, right? So beginning at 5, then it gets highest at 6, then starts to come down a little bit. But that 5 to, what is it, 8, 9 p.m. Is the trouble time. And I was trying to think of, like, again, back to outdoor area lighting stuff, where you've got offices that, and parking lots at offices. Just wondering, back to kind of thinking of pilots, whether
Yeah.
if you had network controls on those, and you could cut back the lighting output by, say, I don't know, 20, 25% on those area lights during those times as needed, whether that would, because even LED lights outside, they still can, depending on the height of the pole, they can still be pretty high wattage fixtures, right? So, and you've got, 20 or 30 or whatever in a parking lot that's really not doing anything at 7 or 8 p.m. You could cut it back some.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that might be a good opportunity for a pilot.
and when you guys were saying nighttime, maybe they were thinking 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, but not thinking that the nighttime is included in that peak hours of 5 to 8.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, that's what I thought was interesting. Yeah. Um, maybe the nighttime lighting controls could play a part in this, because the interesting thing is like they've got a gap too between winter. Okay. So they've got 495 megawatts in the wintertime right now they can call on, but they've only got 238 megawatts in the winter. Right. So like there's a gap here of 200 and almost 260 watts or megawatts between these two. So how do you bring these two closer in line with each other, knowing that the winter peak is going to be a bigger problem going forward? Well, maybe it is, because at night in the winter it starts getting dark at 5 o'clock. Maybe there's a way to incorporate nighttime lighting. So exactly. So nighttime lighting controls. And then the other thing I was thinking is, and I could easily go out and take some pictures of buildings. There are a ton of buildings that leave their lights on at night when there's nobody in there,
right.
so like turn those lights off, or,
or dim them way down or something,
dim them
right.
way down or something. Yeah. There's a lot of high rises that probably have 20% of their lights still running at night, maybe more.
Well, and I was thinking too about area lights or indoor lights. You combine the network with aux sensing. So yeah, somebody's working late. They go out to their car. Okay, the 2 area lights that they walk by to get to their car, those could brighten up as they walk by them, right?
Right.
But otherwise they're dimmed down 50%, and then they leave and they get dimmed back down.
Right.
So same with the interior lights. Yeah, you've got whole suites or floors that, they leave the lights on. There's maybe there's one person working late, but his area stays lit where he or she is, and the rest dim down. There's no need to. Yeah. Anyway, I like what,
I mean, I think they've honestly kind of given us the data here to
Yeah.
make our case for a couple of
Mhm.
these programs, really. So anyway, yeah. I got to get off pretty soon,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
I thought this was good. I don't know. Do you guys want this? Patricia, do you want me
Yes,
to send it out to the
that's
group?
really good, Scott. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
if you
I'd
want to
love-
send it
I'd
right
love it,
now,
Scott.
that would be great. I know we get those too, but we would be posting it in News You Can Use. So if you want to forward it to all of us, that'd be awesome.
Sure. Let's see, Mike.
If you have it right there.
Let's see. Jim, do you have your email, Jim Crossman? I don't know if I have it. It's the easiest way to do this.
I'll send it, maybe I do a chat. Let's see.
Okay, yeah. Okay. I could probably, how can I do this? Because it's a PowerPoint, or it's a PDF.
If you want to, are you sending just that one study, or if you want to forward me the whole email, I'll just forward it to all you guys on the list.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just sent it to you, Patricia.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Awesome. So you guys have, just to follow up, you have the PowerPoint of the survey and how it was presented and how everything ranked out. And then also kind of these follow-up asks and requests between us and Excel. And the two follow-up items is to look at the last question from Paige on the wattages and all those items that Mike responded to, and then everybody give some feedback on your ideas. And then really looking into some real pilot suggestions.
No problem. I can work on that. Yeah, I can put some stuff together on that, Patricia.
Okay, great.
And I will too, on the wattages and the garage fixture, which is a canopy fixture, which can't be in the garage because it's called the canopy fixture.
Yeah, I
Oh my
think
gosh.
that's the things that they're looking for that's not working, like give us examples, because I don't think they're aware.
I sent them that something on that very thing, an
Yeah.
email to Paige from Excel on. You've got essentially the exact same fixture, a canopy versus a garage fixture. It's the same fixture, but depending on how it's categorized, it may or may not receive the garage rebate.
It's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
If it's in the garage,
time.
it's a garage fixture.
Yeah. I'm really glad you brought that up. I literally sent them a long example about that. Yeah.
All right.
Great. Thanks, everyone.